begin whenever you want.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Craig McMichael. I'm running for United States Congress in the 8th Congressional District. I'll tell you a little about myself. I grew up here in the Woodlands area. I went to Oak Ridge High School. After I graduated, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I wasn't ready for college. I wanted to travel and get away from home, and so I joined the Marine Corps. I served for 10.5 years, and during that time, I went to a little over 30 nations. I fought in 3 combat tours, and I did 2 humanitarian missions. It was that experience that led me to understand that what I took for granted growing up here, and that was the fact of how great this country is. The privileges that we have as citizens on a day-to-day basis. And so when I saw that, and I understood the rest of the world where people had lost those things, I started researching our founding documents, our Constitution, our Declaration, and I started trying to understand where the luxury of our freedoms came from, and it led me to understand that no matter what those papers said, those freedoms and liberties were a gift given to us by our Creator. They were something God gave us, and our founders just put it down on paper, using God's guidance to quantify how to pass that along to each individual citizen. So I came home. After my 3rd tour, it was pretty rough. My 3rd one, we lost a lot of guys. I just wanted to be normal. I bumped into my wife. I got married. She had 2 kids, which are my stepchildren, and I had 2 kids. And we moved in a house on Lake Houston. I started working. I designed computer networks for a living. And I started watching the government, and I got frustrated. I got frustrated because I spent so much time fighting for this country and sacrificing my daily life, my time. I lost time with loved ones and family. And here I was watching my government squander our ability to function, taking away our freedoms, attacking our liberties and our religion. And so I started to decide I had to do something about it. I got tired of standing around waiting for someone else to act. And so I stood up and acted, and I started this run for Congress. A year ago when I started, everybody thought I was crazy. And today, after the last straw poll that just came out that I just won, people are starting to think that maybe this kid has a chance. And so the basis of my campaign, what I want to prove, is that the founders were right. Our government is a government of the people and for the people, and that any time, any citizen can stand up and serve this country and make a difference based on moral principles and a firm knowledge of our founding documents. And with that, we the people can take our country back. And that's all I have. Is my 4 minutes good?
You're good.
Okay, who's first?
Yes,
What do you
sir.
think the best method is to replace our current federal tax system? Is it a fair tax, a flat tax, or some other alternate?
The IRS is large. The 16th Amendment, to me, is a violation of our 4th Amendment. I've said this numerous times. I think your 4th Amendment makes you secure in your private property, and the 16th Amendment takes your private property before you receive it. You cannot strike the IRS and do away with it all in one blow. So I like the fair tax. It's a means of repealing the 16th Amendment and doing away with the IRS, still having a tax structure in the company or in the country, allowing the states to do it, and then you can modify from there. I'm a big fan of going all the way back to pre-1913 and doing a tariff tax. And the reason why I support that idea is I think a lot of businesses found cheap labor overseas. You put a tariff tax on imports into the country. I think a lot of corporations would bring their business and their factories back here to avoid the tariff tax. Just my crazy idea. But I often say as a congressman, it's not your job to know everything. It's your job to take good ideas, because it's the American people that make this country great. And so what we need to learn to do is discuss our problems. So I'm always open. These are just my ideas.
Don't be shy.
I love questions. I get them all the time. Yes, sir.
So, Kevin Brady, give me 3 to 5 examples of positions he's taken in, say, the last 2 years that you disagree with.
Now, I'll give you 5 examples of when he voted openly against the Constitution, which to me, once that happens, you should be replaced. The voting down of the Amash Amendment, which allowed the NSA to spy on us, He voted for the CISPA law, which allowed the government to monitor your internet without a federal warrant. He voted to re-support the Patriot Act, which allows the government to come into your home without a warrant. The last budget bill that took the COLA pensions away from our veterans, we made promises to those men and women. They served their country honorably. They deserve what we promised them. And the last one to me is the FISA courts. You have a private court dealing with intelligence issues, and the Congress actually voted to allow the FISA courts to monitor all outgoing and incoming phone calls to the country without a warrant. It's not the responsibility of the government. I often say, and I hold true to this by fighting for the country, is it's a disgrace to every man and woman that went overseas and died for this nation if we sacrifice our freedoms in the name of security. At some point we have to realize that you can't be completely secure. Freedom is your security, and that's more important than government intrusion into our lives. Yes, sir.
Do you believe the United States should be the policeman of the world?
I do not believe the U.S. should be the policeman of the world. I think constitutionally the federal government has 18 enumerated powers. Of those 18, 6 of them deal with military. It doesn't talk about us policing other nations. I don't think it's our responsibility to free people that aren't willing to free themselves. Our men and women are too valuable to send over there to die for people that don't care for us. I think our sole purpose militarily should be for our national defense and possibly some interests that we have, but you don't invade countries to protect your interest.
Nick?
Yes, sir.
Would you support a repeal of the 17th Amendment?
I would. 17th Amendment, for y'all that don't know, was the one that allowed people to vote for senators. I think if you study the documents, originally the founders argued about how to elect the federal Senate. The first idea they proposed was that the House of Representatives would vote for the Senate. They decided to allow the state representatives to do that. The reason being is the senators, the federal Senate, was the last line of defense for states' rights. When the 17th Amendment came is when you started seeing a massive erosion of states' rights. And so I'm a fan of repealing that, allowing the state representatives to pick our senators again, and allowing them to remove them if they're not protecting the states.
So what is the original purpose of the Supreme Court?
The original purpose of the Supreme Court?
Right. So the Chicago case where the Supreme Court said that they could not, the individual could carry a gun, or I don't know exactly what the case was. The Supreme Court said that he could, and the state could not withhold his right.
I'm not aware of the case you're talking of, but I'll tell you my idea. The Supreme Court is not supposed to overrule congressional law. The Supreme Court was supposed to interpret whether somebody was violating the law, but the Congress has the ultimate power of making law inside the land.
Let me ask it a different way. So was the Supreme Court to figure out disputes between states, or between an individual in a state and that state itself?
Between states.
It's between states. It has nothing to individual and the state. That's for a state Supreme Court. That's not for the federal Supreme Court.
I agree.
And for anybody that's never heard me talk or listen to me, I'm a huge proponent of states' rights. I find it interesting, most of y'all may know, in the last 6 months I've probably shaken hands and talked to around 10,000 people. I've asked every single one of them a single question. What is the 9th Amendment of the Bill of Rights? And nobody has ever given me the answer. And so it amazes me that we have all these people that go to school, graduate, college, and they don't know their 9th Amendment. And to me it's the most important amendment because the 9th Amendment clearly states that you have rights that are so commonplace that they're not even listed. But because they're not listed doesn't mean the government can violate them. So what that means to me is that the founders knew morally through God there were certain rights that we had. They were just such day-to-day rights, they weren't even going to waste the time writing them down. But because they didn't mean the government can violate them. And so they put it in there for us to understand that we, the people, and our rights are the federal government. And so we need to protect that. And after us, then the states have rights. That's the order it comes in. The first 8 amendments just explain some of our basic rights over the government. But that 9th Amendment's imperative.
Who else? Good guy, yeah, go ahead.
So let's say you get elected. You go 6 years down the line and you've continually been reelected. How do you prevent yourself from being corrupted and becoming to the point to where you're more invested in Washington DC than you are in Montgomery County?
There's 2 things here. 6 years down the line, I can promise you right now, I'll sign a piece of paper if you want me to, I'm coming home. I have a wife and kids. I have a family. I do not want to be a politician. I'm doing this because I feel like our country's in danger, and my kids and your kids and everybody else in this area deserve better than what we're leaving them. The other thing is simple as, for almost 350 days now I've been running this campaign. Started out by myself. I work a full-time job downtown. The only reason I put this much effort into what I'm doing is because I believe in my heart that this is what needs to be done. I believe that this country needs a lightning bolt, something like a 16-year congressman being beat by somebody that's never held a political office. It would negate everything I did if I went to Washington and became what I've argued and fought against. It will never happen. I would much rather serve 2 years and have you unelect me and send me home, and I can come home with my head held high and tell my kids they picked someone else, but I did everything I could do. That's the honorable thing to do, and that's what's wrong with our country. Our founders never intended such unhonorable men and women serving this country, and that's what we've gotten. And so that's what I'm fighting against. I'm giving the people an option on March 4th. They always say, I vote for the least of 2 evils. Well, this time you have a true option to vote for something other than a politician. That's my campaign slogan, is patriot, not politician. I don't want to be a politician. I don't strive to be a politician. I think we need somebody in Washington that will argue till the end of the day about our constitutional rights and freedoms. Yes, sir.
I might have missed, you might have addressed this in your first question, but do you support Mark Levin's Liberty Amendments?
I do. I'm actually disappointed the state of Texas isn't on board with the Article 5 Constitutional Convention yet. I believe that the only way to strike term limits and tax power from Washington is from the states. We, the people, have to stand up and take our constitutional freedoms back, because the people in Washington are never going to give up their power. You're never going to do it from Washington. There's too many lobbyists, there's too many bureaucrats, there's too much power. People confuse it. They say, well, Craig, when you get elected, what's going to change? If you think I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. and free this country of their problems, that's never going to happen. My goal is run this election, win this campaign, and inspire other people to do the same thing, because I believe there are a lot of people like me around the country. They're just too scared to do it because they don't know. It's the same way I was for years. I sat at home and thought, I can't do anything about it. And so we want to show them that you can do something. If you stand up, you say what you believe in your heart, and you are knowledgeable on it, you can make a change and people will follow you.
Do you have a plan to pay down the national debt?
Yeah, stop spending. Stop spending and we'll pay down the national debt. I get frustrated when they talk about debt ceiling increases, and they say, well, we can't not raise the debt ceiling. And I think, yeah, you can, because at home, when I run out of money, my wife and I stop spending, and then we seem to have more money. It seems like federally this would work too. And it's funny, y'all are laughing, but I get this a lot on Facebook. People ask questions, and they're serious questions, but to me, they're simple answers. We make things too complicated. I had a guy write me, wanted to know all the economic status of what I learned in college and all these different theories, and I said, you're making it too complicated. Our government has made it complicated because they want us not to be involved. They don't want us to understand it. And so what I say is, we understand it. It's 4,538 words in the Constitution. It's very easy to understand. We follow that and we'll free ourselves.
Sarah, what's your question?
I didn't have a question.
Okay.
So in your answer, you said that asking how often you read the Bible, and you said you only read it when you have time, and usually that's in church. So how come, if you talk about we get our freedoms and our rights from our Creator, how come you don't make it more of a priority to read the Bible?
I have an easy answer for, well, it's not easy. The truth about me is 3 years ago, I was not a religious person. My favorite verse in the Bible is Isaiah chapter 59. I had a religious experience. From my combat tours, I fell apart from God. It was a sad part of my life, and it was some of my darkest days. I had an experience where I felt like I needed something more, and I couldn't find the answer for it, and so I started praying. And praying led me to a Bible, and the Bible led me to church, and I found Isaiah chapter 59 sitting in church one day, because sometimes while everybody's standing up singing, I read the Bible. It's my time to catch up for all the years that I missed. And I found Woodlands Church, which I go to and enjoy, because nobody notices me there. And that is my time to heal myself from all my transgressions against God, and I don't want church to interfere. Politically, it's not about that. It's about me when I'm there. Outside of that, with working my job and wife and kids and doing this campaign, I don't have a lot of time to read the Bible. That's my time. I'm really trying to catch up because I missed so many years. But that's what happened to me. Somehow, I was raised Southern Baptist. I went to church, and I fell apart from God. And I've rediscovered that, and what has really made me whole and helped me is I don't worry anymore. I used to stress about things, and I don't worry because I feel like there's a plan, and if I just do what I'm supposed to do, God will meet me halfway and take care of the rest. And that has given me comfort in my life. It's really helped me out in my relationship with my wife, at work, and during this campaign.
Thanks.
I just want to say, I appreciate your honesty about that, and just your zeal and your passion. It nearly makes me want to cry and just say amen every time I hear you speak. I've heard you a few times. I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the immigration and amnesty issues that we face here in Texas?
A lot of people ask about immigration. I think our immigration issues were solved in 1986. I get frustrated when they talk about immigration reform. The little slogan I came up is, we don't need immigration reform, we need politician reform. There's a reason why we have a legal immigration policy, and there's a reason why it's called illegal immigration. They are bankrupting our system right now, and we need to be honest about it. Why wouldn't somebody want to come here when you get free medical, free education, free food, everything's free? We need to cut off the free. I think you don't have to round people up like this Gestapo and send them back. I think if you take away all their benefits, you will find that they will migrate back home. If they can't get a job, which is against the law federally, according to our 1986 Immigration Reform Care Act, and they get no benefits in this country, they will find their way back home. If we want more people in the country, then we need to modify our legal immigration policies, but not just give amnesty to everybody. So we tried it once, 3 million people in '86, and it didn't make a difference. So why do it again? Why do the failed policies of the past? And on the honesty, I decided long ago in my life, tell the truth. It makes it easier. I don't have to keep up with what I lied about. I warn people, if you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you how I really feel. So be prepared for it, because you may not like the truth. Some people don't like to hear the truth. It stings and it hurts, but I think if we're truthful with each other, we can find a solution quicker.
There.
You say the federal programs that you'd scale back and eliminate: education, energy, TSA, Homeland Security, NSA, EPA, and IRS. Elaborate.
The Constitution gives the federal government 18 enumerated powers. The first thing I like to clarify with people, and they misinterpret this a lot, the federal government has no right over social issues. All social issues are state rights issues. When you start looking at those departments, you take education, for example. Education was formed to provide children with school lunches, and now they're mandating our education policies to our children. Energy was formed to reduce our dependency on foreign oil, and we're more dependent now than we were in 1977 when they started it. It is not the federal government's responsibility for these departments. Homeland Security does the same thing that FBI does. NSA does the same thing that the CIA does. We have all these duplicate departments because it was their way to grow and expand government. Because see, in 1913, when they passed the 16th Amendment, the government quickly realized the simple fact that they could take money from us legally and they could use it for their own personal benefit and gain. That's what we need to address.
So what's your plan to scale back and eliminate?
You allow the
What's
states
your
to take
idea?
care of it. You shut down the departments, cut off the funding, and tell the states it's their responsibility. Why can't we educate our own children in the way we see fit? Why can't we control our energy destiny? Why can't Texas produce energy how it wants to? Why does the federal government have to be involved? The Department of Energy is really the one that bothers me the most because it doesn't even do what it was formed anymore. They have gotten where they're controlling the oil reserves in the nuclear power plants. My argument is the Department of the Navy has sailors that are on floating nuclear power plants. Why not let them handle that? Let them regulate it. Just completely shut I saw a Department of Energy tank in Freeport the other day. What do they need a tank for? It was a Humvee, an armored Humvee, but the post office just bought 80,000 bullets. What does the post office need bullets for? This is ridiculous. This is our federal government. This is our tax money being spent and wasted, and we have to stand up and fight it. How do we fight it? We get rid of career politicians. We get people who actually speak out about it and tell the truth. Yes, sir.
So, you got roughly a month, I guess.
We have 10 days till early voting starts.
Right, well, since they're 4 weeks, so what's your plan for basically taking Kevin Brady out and actually bringing this to fruition?
I think at this point, I've done all I can do. I've talked to every group that wanted to talk. I've been on every radio station that will invite me. I've raised every bit of money I think I can. We've worked really hard putting signs out, and I just bought some ads in the paper. At this point, it's really up to the people. At some point, we're responsible for our own destiny, and I can only do so much. I cannot go out and vote 35,000 times for myself. It's our responsibility to spread the word and let everybody know this is our congressional district. Kevin Brady's been here 16 years, and in 16 years, what has he brought us? And what's amazing is after 16 years in Congress, his campaign is that he never moved to Washington. That's his selling point. That's the best you can give me after 16 years is embarrassing. His score from Freedom Works is 68%. If my kids got 68% in school, I would ground them. But we accept it, we tolerate it because he has the most money and he's going to say the best things. I'm tired of it. I think citizens need to be honest with each other. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell everybody you know. The people will show up and vote and make a decision. I don't know what more I can do. I've been doing this for a year. I go every meeting. I talk to everybody who wants to talk. I can only do so much.
Man, so if you get elected, next term of Congress, are you going to go ahead and get the free money from the Department of Transportation to fund the Brazos County Transit System, the new bus purchases and the water taxi?
A lot of those are state issues. I am not a fan of putting any sort of earmarks on federal bills to bring money to the state, and I want to prepare people for this because everybody's about what are you going to bring me? This is my thought on it, and I have a lot of heated discussions about this. If you bring a bill to my congressional office that's 99% great, you're going to pay the troops $1 million each, it sounds perfect, but there's a line in it that's unconstitutional, I'm going to vote no. Because what frustrates me the most is when my opponent says, I don't like the bill, but I voted for it because it's the best we could get. I'm tired of accepting the best we can get. The best we can get led my nation to $17.4 trillion in debt. Those days are over. It's time to follow the Constitution. If that means I vote no for 8,000 bills in the next 2 years, that's fine. Then in 2016, when we do this again, you'll be able to decide if you were happy with that or if you want somebody who's going to go play the game. Because I'm not going to play the game with them. My idea is to set an example of what can happen and hope other congressional districts send people like me there so we can actually make some change. But I'm not going to try to bring pork back to the district. I'm going to try to lower your taxes and give you your money back to decide what you want to do with it. Now, if the state wants to build roads or buses, or the county wants to do it, let the county tax you for that. Don't let the federal government take your money to bribe you just to send it back to you.
If authorization bill is already passed, and there's X billions of dollars appropriated, do you see that now as, if we don't take it, New York will get it, Seattle will get it?
That's
We
the,
have to take it.
that's the trap we've fallen into. If I don't take it now, someone else is gonna get it. And because of that, everybody always takes it. But unless someone puts their foot down and stops taking it, we're never gonna stop giving it. So at some point, we have to be ready as citizens to sacrifice. Everybody has to be willing to sacrifice something. Quick story on this. I was up in Houston County talking to a group of people. Now, I believe the national park system to be unconstitutional. The federal government doesn't have any right to state land. The problem with it up there is they own the mineral rights for some of these national parks. So the counties are losing money. So we started out with the Department of Education, and everybody in the room was for, do away with it, let's get rid of them. So then I brought up national parks. I had a guy get up in my face, called me a communist, and said I just hated the government and wanted to shut everything down. Well, it turns out what it was, he worked for the national park system. Had he stayed in the room long enough like an adult and had a conversation, he would have got to the point where we discussed, okay, you shut the national parks down, we still need parks. America's a beautiful place, but why not let the states control the parks? You would have a job, you would just be a state park ranger instead of a national park ranger. So then his son, who was also a national park ranger, got up and he said, well, if that happens, Craig, what if I get paid $20,000 less through the state park system than the national park system pays me? And I said, well, that sounds like a simple problem. You were overpaid by $20,000 a year. I mean, why not let the free market decide what goes on? Why do we live in this fantasy land? But people have to be willing to sacrifice. Through the history of this nation, patriots have stood up. 2.2 million of them have gone and died for this country. It is time that people realize if we don't start sacrificing something, we're going to lose everything. And I don't want to lose everything. I have kids that deserve the same America I grew up in. And they're only going to get it if we're willing to give it to them. Yes, sir.
Nobody else has a question. This is a priority. What do you think of the practice of one member of Congress of putting those pork spending, whatever, earmarks on a bill and then voting against the bill?
You know, I haven't heard of that. That's interesting policy. I'm actually not a fan of any earmarks. I think you should vote on every bill one instance at a time.
Agreed. And the guy who did it wasn't either. But he would vote against the bill. But he would add earmarks for his district in the event that the bill passed. He voted against the bill. But he was saying, if the bill passes against my wishes and against my vote, not just against my rhetoric, but against my vote, I'm voting against it. But if it does pass, then I've got these earmarks. No, I don't put them in there myself. He put them in because people in his district came and said, we really need this, would you put this in? So he said, okay, I'll put it in, but I'm voting against the bill.
This sounds like a classic case of the dirty side of politics. And what we need to realize is that is a dishonest and unhonorable act. If you don't like something, don't be involved in it in any way whatsoever. The whole notion of these earmarks, and the list of them, when you actually go, you hear about them all the time in the news, when you actually go through and start looking at them, it's unbelievable the amount of money they're spending. It has to stop. I can't believe someone would do that and then vote against it, but there's a congressman that thinks if you put too many Marines on Guam, it will capsize. So, at some point, we have to realize what we're dealing with.
Go ahead, Joe.
I'd make sure I understood what you said. You believe in term limits?
I'm a fan of term limits.
What is a reasonable term limits for a congressman?
I'll tell you, House of Representatives to me, 3 terms, 6 years. For the Senate, 2 terms, 12 years. The argument you always get against term limits is people say, well, the founders didn't put it in the Constitution, so why do we need them now? I counter-argue that the founders didn't put presidential term limits in the Constitution either. It was only when we had a president that was abusive of his power that we realized that we needed that. This is what we need in Congress. The other argument is you can't do anything in 6 years or 12 years. I disagree. Kennedy announced we were going to the moon, and within 10 years we made it. If we can get to the moon in 10 years, you should be able to go to Washington and change something in 6 years. If you can't, then you're a failure anyways. You just need to be strong-willed in your way. Plus, it would cycle out all the old blood and allow new, fresh ideas in there. If people knew they only had 6 years to do something, they wouldn't play dirty politics like my opponent for 16 years waiting to be the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee and saying, well, now I'm going to do something. No, you had your chance.
But you're committed personally to your own application. I have a good friend of mine by the name of Armstrong, who's a senator in Colorado, and he believed in term limits. He served his 2 terms and quit.
Yes, 3 terms and I will quit.
Okay.
You will have to find someone else to do this.
Good.
I don't want to do it forever, but it's hard. My opponent said 8 years and he would quit. That was a long time ago. So, but I can tell you, there's one thing I've always held in life, and I teach my kids this, and this is imperative to understand about me, integrity. Integrity is my key word. And the reason why I say that is I've learned through my life experiences that anything you do can be taken from you. I could go outside and someone could beat me up. My car could be missing because someone stole it. Someone could break into my house tonight and steal everything I have. You can lose almost anything you get in life except your integrity. It's one of the few qualities that as a person you have to choose to give away. And I try to teach my children this, that as you go through life, lying and things like that are important because that is your integrity. That is what you hold to and people view you as that. I fought too hard to get where I'm at and to have people think what they think about me, to go to Washington and throw my integrity away. I would much rather come home than ever do that. And so that's my promise for my 6 years. There's no way. I can be the best congressman in the world. Now, if I come home and you love me and want me to be governor, I don't know. We're going to have some serious conversations. But let's just start where we're at right now.
Has there been a debate with?
He's been asked to debate a couple times, but I'm not going to